but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Good afternoon and welcome to NUFC Matters Worldwide show today. No football, of course, this weekend, which is why everyone's got a smile on their face. And it's a chance to have a little therapy session with a few of the guys and girl, because Holly's joined us today, to talk about the running, I suppose. And welcome to Chris, welcome to Martin, who's had a busy day today. Loaded HQ, of course, making their radio debut. And to Holly, to Kieran, to Pete, and to Al Walid. And I wanted to start with this. I shared this with you just before we came on air. It's a Shields Gazette predictor, if you like, and it looks at the recent form. It looks at the recent form of all the teams that are potentially in the relegation battle. And it says that Bruce's side winning just twice in that period of time have averaged 0.9 points per game. Fulham 1.2, Burnley 1.1 and Brighton 1.5 have all averaged more. So the conclusion of that is that applying this to the current league table suggests that the fight for survival will be decided on the final day of the season at Craven Cottage. Chris, what do you make of that? There's been a lot of talk this week on the various shows that we do. I've asked the question, of everybody on them, do they think we're going to stay up? Do you think we're going to go down? Seems to be pretty split. But that Shields Gazette piece today, you just feel as if, we could go down.
Yeah, I'm counting on us we've got to be 4 points up on Fulham going into the final match, because I don't see us surpassing the goal difference. So if they beat us and we're down on goal difference, we're going down. If we're within 3 points, so we've got to be 4 points up. That's a worrying stat. It's sort of a head-heart kind of question in terms of your heart says that they'll turn things around and they'll start winning some matches that we don't expect them to win, but your head really kind of knocks you back and say, of those final 9 matches, how many points are we realistically going to get out of that? And you can go anywhere from 0 to like low double digits, and it's sort of kind of spot it and say, well, then we'll end up sort of in the middle of that, like 5 points or something is like not a goal, but sort of like, okay, get to 4 or 5 and then start talking about more than that, because I honestly don't see I don't see double digit points, and it's a question of what's the lowest point total that we'd have to get Andre out here to say what's the lowest point total that we could possibly get to stay up, because I don't normally you say you go for 40 points in the season and then we've stayed up with less than 40 points, but it's a question of can you stay up with 30, 32? I don't think that's going to be possible. I think you got to get to mid 30s, and that's kind of quite a haul. I don't have the table right in front of me to know how many points we're on now, but it's a very worrying. We always knew, looking at this from the day the schedule came out, that we better have things thrown up before this time, because the running is terrible. Having to play Man City, Liverpool, Leicester, and Tottenham. And people were saying, "Oh, we can get something out of Tottenham." We have had some luck against Tottenham in the past, but I don't think to say, "Oh, well, they're kind of down in their form, that we should get something out of it." I don't think that's a given, especially with this squad. And of course, I haven't said anything yet about the players, but we've got to have Callum Wilson and Almiron back in good form, because without them, we don't have any legitimate goal scoring threats.
Yeah, I mean, Martin, we're on 28 points. Obviously, played 29 games. Fulham have played a game more. They always say it's better having the points in the bag and that kind of thing. But we've got a game in hand. We've got to win it. But, that game in hand, if we win that, That puts us on to 31 points, and it puts us 5 points clear of Fulham. Can they catch that up with the fixtures that they've got?
Like me and Pete were chatting about this last week, and I think you can flip two coins. You can flip the optimistic coin that says, okay, we've a game in hand. We're 2 points ahead of Fulham. They've not got a great run in either. And you can then flip the negative coin or the pessimistic side and go, we've only won 2 in 20. And now we're looking to try and maybe win 1 or 2 in 9. So the odds, if you're a gambler, which I'm not, are probably not great. I think if you look at the next kind of, we were talking, you look at the next 7 fixtures, we've got Spurs, Burnley, West Ham, Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester, City. I don't see any points in that 7 games there. And that's just me. Possibly Burnley. I think West Ham, Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal, Leicester, and City all beat us at the moment. With Fulham, they've got Villa, Wolves, Arsenal, Chelsea, Burnley, Southampton, Man United, and then us last game of the season. So even if we did pick up a win against Sheffield United, I still think Fulham at the minute have got that bit of fight that our lads are just not shown. And I think that they've probably got more chance of scrapping a dodgy 3 points somewhere with an odd goal against a Wolves or a Villa than we probably have against getting something in the next 7. So I think if you take the points from the show you lads did last night with Mitch and Steve about, the factions in camp, about the allegations of Shelvey, intentionally trying to make Willock look bad, that Supermax said on the show on Thursday, I just think we're an absolute basket case at the minute. So if you've got all these other distractions going on around the club, no sign of Charnley, nothing happened in the background. Bruce obviously, is Bruce. And then you've got the 11 that go across that white line on the pitch and can't do anything, and capitulate like we did against Brighton. I think, if that is the case, I think we had one way, and I think that's down. I said it a few weeks back, and Pete will tell you this. He was more optimistic than me, but I said I just had a feeling with where we were, we were going down, because it has that feel like it did in not in the last one, but in the first one in 2009, I think it was. It's that same feel. It's that same feel around the club. It's messy. Everything is coming out. The players are not fighting for it, and I just don't see no fight and no desire, and I am genuinely worried.
Yeah, Holly. I mean, the game in hand, as I say, you've got to win it. The fixtures, the back end of the season, Man City, Sheffield United, Fulham. If it's still in our hands, then is Martin right? Do you think the players aren't good enough to get us out of this? Do you think it is going to be a struggle? They don't have the same kind of fight that Fulham have?
I think that the players are good enough. Like I said, this team shouldn't be anywhere near the relegation zone because on paper they are a decent side, but it's just the mentality that's the problem, and I don't think that they've got the same fight that the Fulham squad do. You can tell when you watch Fulham's games, they're doing everything they can to make sure that they're a Premier League club next season, whereas we are playing like we're safe by about 20 points. That's the way we look on the pitch, like we're just not even trying. But there is a high possibility it could go to the last game of the season, and unfortunately if it does, I think it'll go in Fulham's favour, especially since they'll have fans there and we won't. It's just a really awful position to be in. But I think we need about 3 wins if we want to stay up. I think, which you would probably want to get from the Fulham, Sheffield United and probably the Burnley game. But we have got some hard fixtures and it's going to be so tough. Like, I think realistically we'll probably be down before that Fulham game, but I hope we can try and pick up points and stay in it until then and try and get that win against Fulham on the last day of the season, because I'd be happy with that. Just staying up no matter how we do it, that'll be enough for me, because we just can't afford to go down. Players that are out of contract, and the fact that we're going to lose so much money and stuff like that, especially with all the COVID money that we've lost and stuff, and then the takeover that's fell through, it would just be an absolute nightmare if it went down. Like, the future of the club would be so uncertain, and it's just really worrying. That these players, though, this is what worries me about them, is they just don't have it in them to just screw their head on and think, right, we need to just focus for the next few games and try to stay up, because they're just not caring enough. For me, they don't care about Newcastle. There's a handful that you think, yeah, they care about the club, we want them to stay here, but most of them, I just think, are looking for a payday, and honestly, they couldn't care less. And they'll probably leave, go down, and Newcastle means nothing to them. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I can see your point. Paul, good afternoon, mate. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you back on the show. I mean, I think the thing that surprised me the most after we did Matchday Live last week, and watched one of the worst games, not just of the season, but in recent memory, was that Steve Bruce, and I know it's international week, but then gave the players 6 days off out of a potential 9 days training. I mean, that beggared belief, didn't it?
I would have had them training on Whitley Bay Beach, to be honest with you, the next day.
It's been done.
Absolute shambles. Think that he's lost the dressing room, you can tell that now. The players just aren't turning in performances anymore. And the Graham Jones formation, I think we need to scrap that as well now. Just go back to 4-4-2. I
mean, the players that aren't getting the game, the likes of the Longstaffs, Andy Carroll, would you be having them in the starting lineup? I mean, I've talked about Malcolm and Gibbo this week, and they point to the Longstaffs in particular. But is there any particular players that you would have in the starting lineup that Bruce isn't picking at the minute?
I would have Matt Ritchie in for starters. I'd definitely have Andy Carroll in as well. So you need people what's going to fight for the shirt, and at the minute we haven't got that. And people like Jeff Hendricks getting a game ahead of like your Elliot Andersons and your Longstaffs. How's that happening?
Yeah, even the Chronicle were taking the mick out of the Hendricks situation, weren't they, yesterday with with their comment about who was going to replace Hayden, and it's everybody knows it'll be Hendrick, which is crazy, really, which is crazy. But Kieran, you obviously covered the match with us last week, mate.
Yeah.
Have you recovered?
Can you hear me, Steve? I don't know if my...
You're perfect, mate. Perfect, better than last weekend.
Yeah, I know. I've got different headphones in, yeah.
Perfect, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will go to the last game of the season, and unfortunately, I think Fulham will beat us. I just think when we come under pressure, we just crumble, don't we? And you look at, I mean, you're talking about the game in hand. It's Liverpool away, and Liverpool at home the past few weeks have been crap. But you know what we're like? We would go there and just screw the record up, wouldn't it? And they'll go and beat us. And not only will they beat us, they'll probably crush us as well. So I still think we will go down. Personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's where the wins are coming from. There's a bit of talk in the chat today about Tottenham not really playing well against Newcastle. I mean, Jose managed to beat the Hoodoo last season. Came to St James's Park, took all 3 points, but it's not a happy hunting ground for Tottenham. No,
it's not. I think. I mean, we come back. We've been promoted now 4 years, and they've beaten us every time at St James's. But a couple of those occasions, we should have got a result against them. It depends, because I'm not so sure that Son had a hamstring injury the other day, didn't he? I don't know if he's back fit for it. But you're talking Gareth Bale, Harry Kane, Son. They'll cause us all sorts of problems. And the way we're playing at the moment, it's only looking like one winner, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
That Burnley game the week after could be possibly the more winnable game.
Good shout. Pete, looking at the graph that that the Gazette had put up earlier today, it is going to be squeaky bum time, isn't it? We're going to go to the back end of the season, and at least we've got something to play for. But as usual, it's a relegation dogfight.
It is, and it's going to be incredibly difficult. I mean, you look at those fixtures and you think to yourself, like Martin said, where are you going to get the points? But look, I am still. There is still some positivity in me that we can get something, that we can get enough to stay in the league. We're still 2 points clear of Fulham. It is still all on Fulham. The pressure's on them. They've dug themselves out to get into this point, but it's whether they've got enough to then go the next step, and that's the hardest step. And that's a step where you get enough points, not just to get above Newcastle or Brighton for a week or two. It's to stay there, and it's to maintain it. That's the big question from that point of view. I think, look, Fulham have had their run. Brighton have had a decent run themselves. I still think that there's a little run left in us yet. And, you've seen it in teams in years gone by. I'm not saying it's going to happen to us, but you've seen it in teams gone by where you've looked at their pitch and you thought, they're not getting a point. And then all of a sudden, they pick up these surprise results against these teams that you'd have no chance or no expectations of them getting points from. And that's why I've said that, for weeks, and me and Martin have spoke about it, like you said, I've said it on the Matchday Lives, that I'm looking at the Arsenals at home. I'm looking at the potentials of Tottenham and the Leicesters away. I'm looking at the West Hams at home. Yes, they're all up there. Yes, they're all challenging for something. But they're the ones where all it takes is for that team to turn up with the wrong mentality and we catch them off guard. The one thing that we're forgetting is that we're going to have Callum Wilson, St. Maximin and Almiron back on the pitch. We've talked about how bad this run has been recently, but we haven't talked enough about how influential those three attacking players are on our team and the way that we play. And they will make a difference. Yes, they're going to need time to get to 100% fitness. I think that was abundantly clear by Almiron's performance against Brighton. He didn't look 100%. He was shot by 60 minutes and rightly took off. But training under his belt, fit and firing, those guys are the guys that can save us and get us in to staying into this league. Is it about Steve Bruce? No, it's not at this point. It's not about him. It's about the players. And I think the players on the pitch, more so than anything for themselves. And, Holly made a good point about these players. They don't look, they don't look up for it. They don't look like they're wanting to play. They've got an opportunity here to have a relegation on their CV. Some of them more than for more than one relegation. They don't want that as professional footballers. They do not want another relegation on their CV. So for them individually and collectively, it's about whether they can really stum up and put a performance in over a period of 8-9 weeks now that can keep them in this league. So it is all on them. Graham Jones will have his say, but ultimately it will fall with Steve Bruce in terms of who he picks. But these boys have got to do a job for themselves, for the fans, for the club, not necessarily for the manager or the owner.
Yeah, Al-Walid, your feelings, on the run-in really. Can you see Newcastle staying up, or do you think it's curtains? Do you think we will get relegated?
It's very easy to stay up, but I think I'm worried not about the games we are left. I'm very worried about the way we play, the formation. It's going to be the same for the next games because there's two types of games of teams. There is tough games like Arsenal, Tottenham, the big teams, and the other teams are the winnable games. Unfortunately, we play the same with them all. Let's take, for example, Brighton and Fulham, the one we are. As you said, we are in dogfight with. Actually, they are on dogfight, but we are waiting. For us, we are just waiting when we play. Brighton, always initiative. Fulham, always initiative. They try to get the game from the referee whistle. But for us, we are waiting. What we are waiting, I'm not really sure. We are waiting the goals to concede goal. And once we concede goal, we start struggling and make embarrassing performance for us. For me, with Brighton, one shot on target, it's really embarrassing. This is what I'm worried for. This is what I'm worried for the next games. Are we going to play the same? Does Steve Bruce doesn't learn the lesson yet? because Steve Bruce to other managers now he's expectable his formation. Any team play against Newcastle, okay, Bruce will defense. He will just put the Joe Linton and Almiron, and that's all. So I think if I am a coach of other teams, I will say we can win this game against Newcastle in first 10 minutes or first half at least. We just score the goal because they are not gonna attack us. They feel safe. Brighton defense, it was like a picnic for them. They are just play like training. They didn't receive maybe just one shot the whole 90 minutes. So this is what I want to change. I'm not really care about the games against who, but I want just to update or do something with the formation. And the formation is very bad. It's not show anything. You didn't win it against the big teams. You are not winning or do anything or not even play good against the winnable games. So what we are, if we are gonna play the same, I'm not actually. I think it's it's gonna be very bad time for Newcastle.
What is the feeling amongst Saudis about this? I mean, we've had you as part of the team all the way through the last 12 months when we've been hoping for a takeover, Al Walid, and the positivity that we've had about essentially PIF potentially taking over and helping Newcastle United become one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the world. But now it's now gone to arbitration. We know nothing about that. We know nothing of timescale. We only know who the committee is that's going to sit on it. But what are you and your friends saying across there about it? Are you optimistic that the arbitration will see the takeover go through, or are you more pessimistic?
Before the arbitration, everybody said that the deal is off, and the whole world, not just in Newcastle, everyone expecting the deal is finished. But after the court results being published to the fans, we got more hope that we have a chance. At least that most of people, even here, with my friends who are not really deep into this, but they are aware from them what they've been saying in the media. Mostly they're saying it's like 50-50. But for me, I think, I think we have better than 50-50, and I think we have like 80% to 90%, because now we are waiting for something. We have hope. There is something we're gonna be announced. And I remember an interview I saw, a radio interview with Nick DeMarco recently. He said arbitration usually could take 2-3 weeks. Some take a few months. So I expect the results in the summer time. For the regulation battle, actually we are the fans, of course, they are sympathy with the Newcastle, and they are agree that they have big question mark. Why Steve Bruce still there?
Yeah,
they have because every game is worse than the game after. So what's the point?
Yeah, I think everybody's the same. Everybody is scratching their heads about why Steve Bruce is still there. Chris, we've had more speculation about potential managers. The bookies love people to spend their money and waste their money on potential names. Chris Wilder's the new name in the frame just because he's got his P45 at Sheffield United. Is that a name that gets the hairs on the back of your neck standing up?
Well, the hairs on the back of my neck are pretty long now. But not a chance. I don't want Chris Wilder anywhere near the club. I just don't think he. Number one, the most important thing is I don't see Mike Ashley hiring anyone. If Steve Bruce is sacked, it's going to be Graham Jones. There's not going to be anyone that's brought in to ride out the end of the season. if we go down, I'm sure that that he wants to stick with Steve Bruce or Graham Jones if he doesn't pull the trigger this season. So not a chance of any new manager coming in from anywhere from Rafa, who I want after a takeover, down to Eddie
Eddie Howe.
Eddie Howe there's not a chance that we're going to have a caretaker manager other than Graham Jones, and I don't think that I think Ashley's sort of plan was to bring in Graham Jones and sort of to try to force Steve Bruce out, but Steve Bruce only cares about the paycheck and wants to be fired to get that severance pay, and it's sort of a Mexican standoff, you want to call it that, between Bruce and Ashley, and Ashley doesn't want to budge, and Steve Bruce said, well, you won't fire me, I'm not going to quit. So I don't see any managerial change through the end of the season. And it's sort of likely that if we do go down, that Steve Bruce will be the manager for the championship, try to bring them straight back up. But I don't see any managerial change the rest of the season in terms of who I would favor of all those names. God, I would probably none of those names excite me. Eddie Howe would be a different kind of manager for a different kind of Newcastle team. He's not going to come in for a 8 or 10 game, 8 or 8 game relegation battle if we lose our next game. But he could be an intriguing manager to hire if we were relegated and bring us back up next season.
Okay, Chris, cheers. Big shout out to our sponsors, as always, Spider VPN. They were with us in February, they're with us in March, and they're going to sponsor us again next month. So big thanks to the guys. Big shout out to Geordie Riffs as well, in a conversation with Graham today, and he's delighted with the sponsorship and the way that it's gone. Big shout out to them. Premium guitar lessons for beginners and children, guitar repairs and servicing, recording studio. Whilst we're still in a bit of lockdown, get yourself onto their website, www.geordieriffs.co.uk. Maybe take up a new instrument. Follow that Instagram though, at Geordie Riffs. They're desperate for people who jump on there and follow them, and at Geordie Riffs Official on Facebook. Also a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, and to John at Jab Signature, who does all of our flyers. If you're a first time visitor to the channel, please subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, hit the thumb up to like the video, and click share to share it to your social media. And if you've missed us on the YouTube stream, you can also get us on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. We've also put up a new thing for the food bank, and it's a big shout out to Rachel, who is a big supporter of the show, watches every show. She is a very talented artist. She's donated this wonderful laminated print of ASM. She's put that up for the food bank. So donate. We're not looking for donations, we're looking for an auction as usual. It's on my Twitter. It's pinned to the top of Twitter. Donate whatever you want. There's no bids at the moment. It's just gone up. Start at £1, put it up to £5, whatever you want to do. All proceeds, as usual, go to the food bank. I'm going to have that up until Monday, and I will announce it on Lady Night on Monday night, who is the winner. So get your money in for the food bank, please. They do need our support, as always. Martin, we've talked about the managerial position many times on this show. It will not go away, because ultimately, the state of the club, the state of the team, and our precarious position is always going to suggest that the manager is going to go at some point. My big concern is that if the takeover doesn't go through and we drop into the championship, we could still have Steve Bruce here next season. And Chris has already alluded to the fact that he's got a decent record in the championship. Is that Mike Ashley's plan, do you think? Maybe he's just to keep him in and give him the opportunity to come back up, and maybe he's give him some money to spend?
I hope not, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think the thing with Bruce is his record in the championship. I think there's a factor that most of the teams he's had in the Championship, he's actually got them relegated from the Premier League. So I think that's why, if you look at Aston Villa, he got them relegated, but only managed to get them to 13th in the Championship before he was sacked. So I think Chris's point, I think where we are now, is there going to be anybody else coming in? I don't think so, no, because I firmly believe that Newcastle made their managerial move by bringing in Graham Jones, sorry. And I think their aim was to piss Bruce off, and I think it backfired. I think, Paul spoke about the formation and going back to 4-4-2. I think the diamond formation that Jones wants works, but I think Bruce is not allowing him to play the personnel he wants to. So I think that for me is one of the issues. If we go down, will he leave Bruce? Probably. I would like to see somebody like an Eddie Howe if we did go down, or a Chris Wilder. I would take either of those to get us back up in the Championship, because I think they're more than capable. I think Eddie Howe is much more a master tactician. You don't even need to be a master tactician. You just need to be able to be somebody that can write formations on a piece of paper, and you're better than Bruce. So I would take either of those. I think, to close off on the takeover point, if we go down, does it happen? And look, we probably see loads of stuff on our Twitter feeds about the takeover, because we are, on this panel, we are close to a few people who do know a few bits, and I get asked stuff and I get tweets and whatever. I still firmly believe that the deal will go through even in the Championship. And the reason that I think it will, and the reason I think Ashley will sell even if he does go down, is he's doing an awful lot of work to line up these warehousing and deals in the Middle East where he can sell his, very nice or very not nice Donair socks and everything else. So I think he's doing so much work in the background in trying to maintain his other business and line up these warehouses in Dubai and other places. I think that's a larger piece for him, that if he did sell the club, I think he would look to retain something on the merchandise, that he could sell shirts in Saudi, in Dubai, in the Middle East, and all those kind of places. And I think that is where he would see more money being made than possibly what he may lose in the club. I think he would take from player sales, as people said. I think he would take from the parachute payments and all that other stuff. But I can see him still selling. So on that side of it, I've always, I think, remained positive, apart from once, Steve, where I texted you and asked you, was it still on? But I think that was about a year ago. So I've maintained that positive vibe on the takeover, and I still do. I made a comment the other night. Somebody asked me about the Championship, and I actually said, I'm not that bothered. I kind of like the Championship. I might win a few. So, let it come. But yeah, manager-wise, there'll be nothing this season. Project-wise, you'd love to have Rafa or somebody else. If the deal doesn't happen, then yeah, I'd take a Wilder or Howe to get us back up. If it's Bruce, then God help us.
John Spence, yeah, I did notice there was a car alarm going. It's the area that Chris here lives in. Like, it's dodgy, so I had to mute his microphone when he left.
I thought he'd let the crickets out again. I was like, I'm checking me mic. Is that me?
I've still got a blocked ear, guys. So I genuinely cannot hear in this ear. It's an absolute nightmare. So
it wasn't from me.
It was out. I muted it and it went off. So it's straight off. It was a car alarm going in the background or something. Where are you? 20 foot? You look as if you're 20 foot up.
No, I'm on the 33rd floor, so it's about, I don't know how many stories per floor, but
well, I thought it was just ringing in me, tinnitus or something like that, but never mind. When I muted you, it went off anyway. So unless it was just great timing and it went off at the same time, who knows? Holly, the managerial situation, and I know we've discussed it on Ladies' Night with you as well, but it's just another name in the frame, isn't it? Chris Wilder, whoever gets sacked gets linked with Newcastle. But what do you think? I mean, lots of people going, Eddie Howe's not coming up north in the chat. People saying that Steve Bruce, God, we couldn't have him for another year. What's your take? What do you think's going to happen?
I've accepted now that Steve Bruce will probably stay here, especially till the end of the season. And I think there's a high chance that Ashley could keep him on even next season, because I think he will have that mindset that he could get us out of the Championship, even though he probably won't. But in terms of Chris Wilder, I wouldn't want him anywhere near the club. Like, I wouldn't give him the job. I know it's easy to like get in that mindset where you're just desperate for anyone but Bruce, and like I've been there myself. But realistically, Chris Wilder's not going to do a good job. Like, he did do well with Sheffield United. Obviously, he got them up from League One, got them to the Premier League, and then they had a good season last year. But we had an okay season last year under Bruce, and then we ended up in the position we are now, and that was the same for Sheffield United. And I don't think Chris Wilder would be good enough to get us out of this problem that we're in. Eddie Howe, I would take him. I think that he would be quite good for us at the moment, but I don't think he'll get the job. Like, I think he would take it. I know people are saying that he wouldn't come up north and stuff, but I think he would, certainly if he got offered the job. I mean, it's better than having no job at all. Like, Newcastle is a good job, even though it's hard at the moment. But I just think Ashley will stick with Bruce no matter what. And I accepted a long, long time ago that we probably weren't going to get rid of him. And I know people were like, oh, if we lose this game, like after that game, so many people were like, oh, Bruce is gone now. Surely he's got to be gone. And yes, realistically, any other club, he would have been gone. But because it's Newcastle, Mike Ashley just lets him stay here. Like, he doesn't want to spend the money. It's just like, it's ridiculous. I've never known Mike Ashley gamble with an investment so much as he is at the minute with Newcastle. Like, he's always made questionable decisions, but this is worse than ever, I think. But Graham Jones is probably the likely person to come in as a takeover, like temporary manager, if it does happen. And I'll be happy with Graham Jones. Just, we need Bruce gone ASAP, because until he's gone, we can't really move forward.
Yeah, no, we can't. Lots of suggestions coming in about putting grommets in my ears. I've had it for 1 week, guys. I've now got more wax coming out of my ear than I could make candles with. So, to be honest, I think I'm getting on top of it. It has been a bit of a nightmare, but we're getting there in the end. Paul Martinez is another name that's been mentioned, and obviously he worked with Graham Jones with Belgium. Is that somebody who you would entertain in the Newcastle dugout?
Yeah, I think you do a good job. To be honest, at the minute, I'd probably take Deontay Wilder rather than Chris Wilder.
Yeah, I get your point.
Floyd Mayweather.
I can't believe nobody's mentioned like Frank Lampard.
Somebody did in the chat, potentially bringing Frank Lampard in. I mean, he's available.
That was a name that I was thinking of, but I couldn't remember the name, so I didn't say Frank.
I think Frank Lampard would do a good job. He would command respect from the players as well.
Yeah, I mean, he did well with Derby in the Championship, of course. I mean, I personally thought he was doing a good job at Chelsea. You know, I thought he deserved the time to maybe do a bit more there. But ultimately, when you spend that kind of money and you don't get where that owner wants you to be, then he just sacks you. It's as simple as that. But I think he was too quick to jump at the Chelsea job. I think he would have got that at some point. I think he should have stayed at Derby and continue to build his legacy there. But I think he's a good shout. I mean, he's a young up-and-coming manager. Very Gerrard's the same, but I think he'll stay and make a legacy at Rangers. But Lampard's not a bad shout. Yeah,
I think you do a good job. Got no chance of getting anybody like Steven Gerrard. No chance.
No, I think Lampard would have the balls to take it as well. I think a lot of people talking about Joey Barton. Is that somebody you see? I like Joey Barton, but I just think that would be a nightmare. Like,
I think it'd be like a hand grenade going off in the locker room. Like, I wouldn't have him. Like, no way. No,
me neither. I don't think it would work at all.
I think Kieran? That was a good point there, Steve. Sorry, just somebody flashed up there. Just about would you take the likes, if we did go down, would we take the likes of Warren Barton, Rob Lee, and so on and so forth as a team to kind of bring us back up, which that would work for me, probably would work for a lot of fans. Interestingly, I was just watching something else here. I had it tipped on my phone. The odds for Eddie Howe to Celtic have just massively dropped about 2 minutes ago.
Apparently he was in Glasgow earlier. I don't know if that was true or not.
Yeah. It's that looks like that's a possibility anyway.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting.
No. I think you're right though, mate. And to see Eddie Howe going up there would make sense as well. Kieran, your take on the managerial situation, mate?
Honestly, I would take anyone at the moment. Anyone's better than Bruce. I've just got this horrible feeling that he's gonna stick with him next season if we go to the Championship. And I don't know if you've seen it the other day in the Chronicle, but it looks like he come out and said, "Oh, I'm glad I'm going to stick with him because he's not too demanding," or something like that. I don't know if you've seen it.
Ashley said he doesn't blame. Well, he didn't go as far as to say he doesn't blame Steve Bruce. He just said the players are responsible.
Yeah, but anyone could see that the players are not playing for him. So I don't quite understand. Yeah, the players do have to take some sort of responsibility, but at the end of the day, the manager's the one who's coming up with the formation tactics, if he even has tactics. But yeah, I mean, I would take anyone. But if we're in the championship, it depends on it. He's going to sell the club. Do you think Rafa would come back into the championship if he sold the club?
Oh, it's $1 million question. I only think Rafa will come back if there's a takeover.
Yeah, just because of the potential. I mean, if for some reason they somehow managed to get 50,000 fans in the championship, which even with a takeover, I'm not sure. Just would he come, or would he just wait for a Premier League job?
I mean, he wants to come back to Newcastle, but he wants to come back. He wants to come back under a new owner.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about that.
It's pretty obvious when he came out the other day and said, "Oh, I'm waiting for that project." You know, he's waiting for us. If somehow the sale goes through, isn't it?
I mean, I've been so late catching up with these programmes that have been done on other football clubs. I watched the Sunderland one, of course, which you would as a Newcastle fan. You want to have a laugh at their expense when they're doing so badly. But watching the other ones, which I've watched probably on block the last 2 weeks, I've just about finished the Leeds one now. But I really, and I tweeted about it earlier, just seeing like Bielsa's, it reminded me so much of Rafa actually, the way he dedicates his life to football, dedicates his life to studying other players, tactics, formations, but then the amount of training that he had them doing, I mean, just everything about it. And then coming in the season that they didn't get promoted, so I'm into the second season now. I'm not spoiling it for everybody. We know they're in the Premier League. But it was just the training facilities. It was the attention to detail, having beds at the training ground, reopening the swimming pool, having a cinema, having a rest room and stuff like that. All kinds of stuff which, players would really appreciate at work, so that, that there's good morale, and all of that kind of stuff was brought on by that manager, Kieran. That Bielsa was allowed to say, this is what I want. And I think it's Kinnear who is the chief executive there, not Joe Kinnear, but a young sensible guy who's literally, obviously it's not his money, he's playing with somebody else's money, but it was just a wonderful line where he said, Bielsa told us what he wanted, and this is what we've given him. And I think that's the kind of relationship which we could have had. Mike Ashley's been very narrow-minded with Newcastle. If he just turned round and said, to Rafa, look, I've made some mistakes at this football club, but I need you, and you need me. It would have worked fine. Rafa was look, we know Rafa was getting paid a king's ransom for being there. He wasn't doing it for free, but it was a project. And if you'd let him do the project over that 5-6 year period, imagine where we would have been now. It wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been any of this. The reserves, the academy, everything would have been, everything would have been, at a good level. And Newcastle wouldn't be worrying about relegation, and might have even won something by now in that short period of time. Might have only been the League Cup, might have qualified for Europe, but there would have, something would have happened positive.
Do you think that he would leave Leeds? Because apparently his contract runs out at the end of the season. You
never know about Bielsa, do you? Watching him, he makes decisions and off he goes. And it just shows you short-term memory. You forget about things like, the goal against Aston Villa, where essentially he allowed his players, told his players to stop and let them score the goal after they had gone ahead and scored a goal when they should have kicked the ball out. I mean, that shows real sportsmanship. He's just a class act. And I'd forgotten how good an act he was until I watched this programme, and watching him and listening to the interviews he does. A little tip: put the subtitles on, because there's a lot of his interviews which they don't come on automatically on the screen, so you've got to put them on. But honestly, if you haven't watched it, watch that Leeds United programme on Prime Video. It'll make you it'll make you really wish that we had the similar kind of setup at Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Pete, I'm not sure whether you've watched them programs, but it just makes you jealous. That's the word I was looking for. It makes you jealous of what we could have had at Newcastle and where we're at now.
Yeah, I think we've had a brief chat before. I've watched the Tottenham and the Man City one, and the Man City one for me stands out more than anything because.
Oh well, I'm going to watch that last. So I'm watching them back to front. What did you reckon? What did you make of the Spurs one? Because I was expecting more from Mourinho, but it was.
I was, and I'd obviously watched the Man City one, so I'd obviously seen Pep, and I won't go into detail about that because you've not seen it.
Yeah.
But watching that Man City one and seeing how Pep worked day to day with his players, how tactically aware he was for very, very different situations, how he managed his players. He had the utmost respect for everyone in world football anyway before that, but just watching that and watching him, in areas where you don't get to see, that the media don't really get to go behind those scenes, just made me appreciate him even more as a manager. But also it just made me appreciate the club in Man City even more. I'm a Newcastle fan. I love the club. I love everything about the club, but I also have a lot of interest in other clubs as well. And I do a lot of research and I watch a lot of games across Europe. And watching Man City and watch Pep do his business, absolutely amazing. But you yourself and Kieran made some a couple of good points, which I'll just touch on briefly. First and foremost, Marcel Bielsa is a fantastic manager, and I think a lot of people in this country forgot that actually he did a fantastic job within Europe before he came to Leeds. And I think the fact that he came to Leeds in the Championship, in the media, made it as if he wasn't really that good of a manager. He's for me, he's a top 8 Premier League manager. And Leeds are incredibly lucky to have him, just like we were incredibly lucky to have Rafa Benitez when we did, and have him in the Championship. And he, the one thing about Bielsa is that actually doesn't stay at clubs very long. You look at Marseille, you look at Bilbao, you look at Lazio and Lille, the teams that he was at before. He was only there maybe 1-2 seasons at the most, and then he'd move on somewhere else. So it's a surprise to me that he's been there as long as he has been. But he's a fantastic manager, and if Leeds lost him, they'd be stick on guaranteed to get relegated the next season. I'd guarantee it, no matter how good a season they've had, and no matter how good those players are playing. Those players are playing like what we had under Rafa Benitez, whereas they're playing out of their skins for the manager. And if that manager leaves, their mentality and their way of playing leaves with them. And that's what we're experiencing right now at Newcastle United, and we have done over the 18 months. To answer that other question, and there's a really good point that Kieran made about Rafa Benitez, I am absolutely 100% convinced that Rafa Benitez will be our manager if we get taken over in the Championship. I don't care whether it's in the Championship, I don't care whether it's in the Premier League. I know I say I know for a fact, I'm convinced in my mind that Rafa Benitez will take charge of this team, because Rafa Benitez is all about a project. And when he took the job, when we went down into the Championship, he was of the mindset that he was working on a project to build Newcastle, to make them the team that he felt the club, the city and the fans deserved. Right? And he didn't get to finish that job. And we've talked about that a lot. I am convinced that under Stavely and the Saudis and the Reuben brothers, that he will get the opportunity to build that project. And whether it's in the Premier League and the Championship, I think he'll take that job on again. Because he'll have the money, he'll have the support, and he'll have the backing to do what he wanted to do back in 2017. So they're just my little points on that. In terms of the managerial situation, Chris Wilder will be nowhere near this club. You've got to look at the situation. If anyone's looked at the situation with Sheffield United, I have. I've got friends that support the club. The reason why he left is because he fell out with the owners, because he didn't have the same vision that they had. He wanted to sign players that they didn't want to. He wasn't allowed to manoeuvre in the transfer market the way in which he wanted to. I think that it was quite evident that the Brewster deal was kind of put on him. It wasn't necessarily his choice. There was various other deals that he wanted to do, like Callum Wilson, for example. He wanted him as an alternative. They wouldn't allow to pay that sort of money and the wages. because I think he's on the best part of 100 grand with us. Bruce is on significantly less. All of those things come into play, and he would not take the job to work under this owner right now. So that for me is a non-goer. And actually, I think any manager's a non-goer right now. We've got Bruce for the rest of the season. I'm convinced of that. This 2-week period was our opportunity to get a manager in, to get them training and actually do some training, because they haven't done much this week, and get them ready for the Tottenham game next Sunday. And the fact that that hasn't been done, and the fact that that was squashed within less than 24 hours, says to me only one thing, and Bruce is here to the end of the season. That's not what they've promoted, in my opinion, about the fact that they're behind Bruce. I think there's just a little bit, and I think the Chronicle have touched on it quite nicely today, in that there's a standoff there, in that Mike Ashley doesn't want to pay the money to get Bruce sacked, and Bruce doesn't want to resign like he's done at pretty much every other club. And that's the issue that they've got right now. Do I think Bruce will be in charge next season if Ashley's still owner? No, because I think that will come to a head in the summer. And I think that either Bruce will walk away, or Mike Ashley, if the arbitration doesn't go the way that he wants to, I think he'll end up stumping up the money, and it'll probably be used as it'll probably be taken out of our transfer kitty for the summer, or however much that is, to pay him off. And that's where I am with regards to sort of that managerial situation at the moment.
Quick one from your favourite fan, Live Goals. He always has a question for you, Pete. He just says, do you think Mitrovic is going to go on a scoring run after his wonderful international performances?
Mitrovic is like, put it this way, he's a very different player for his national team. I don't think he's happy at Fulham. I don't think he wanted to go to Fulham in the first place. I think he wanted to stay at Newcastle. I think he was kind of forced into a move, but he was told that he wasn't going to play much football. And I think his performances since he's been at Fulham, when he signed permanently, is a classic example of somebody that is just really there to take the money. And what you see when he goes on international duty is that passion, that heart, that determination, that desire, that quality that we had when he first signed for us. Because remember, he is a Newcastle fan, and he talked about it openly. He was, when he was a kid, he used to follow Alan Shearer, loved him, and he had that passion with us, that determination, that want to be the man at the club. He hasn't got that for Fulham, and I think Scott Parker's a smart enough manager, and I think he's caught on to that, because he's pretty much played off the bench all of this season. Do I think he'll get the goals? No. The reason being is because Fulham don't play his style. They don't put crosses into the box. They play two inside forwards, and they play with the ball dribbling on the floor into those areas, and it doesn't suit Mitrovic. It's a bit like we've got with Andy Carroll right now. We don't have wingers that are natural crosses of the ball. So we have a striker there that is a big, tall, dominating striker when you put the balls in the box, but we don't put balls in the box. So it's kind of pointless in playing, because you're not playing to his strengths, and that's what they're getting with Mitrovic at the moment. You need to have your traditional wingers running down the wing, putting balls into the box, and him getting on the end of it. And that's why he was so successful at Anderlecht, because they had that. They had those quality of players to put in those type of balls. So do I think he's going to go on a scoring run and score a load of goals? No. I think if they get their goals, it'll be from Maja and it'll be from Lookman. Because they're the only two that really look like scoring, and even they've not scored that many goals for them. So it's a really good question, but that's kind of just my observations of both Mitrovic and Fulham at the moment.
Last thing you want is that bloody Marja scoring, isn't it?
I don't even think he's that great of a player, if I'm honest with you.
No.
I don't really rate him, but it's one of them where, he came in. I think he's on loan from Bordeaux, because I know Bordeaux signed him initially. And it's one of those, it's like that honeymoon period when you've got that buzz and you get a couple of goals, and I don't see it lasting. He hasn't scored for a couple of games, I don't think. He hasn't even looked like he's played well whenever I've seen him play. It's just one of those things. But and that's the thing for me. It's whether Fulham can keep that momentum going and keep those players on a high. Because look, when they're out of that honeymoon period, Fulham are an average team. I would say just as, if not lesser quality than us. You look at their front players in terms of, in comparison to ours, individually and collectively, ours are better.
Yeah.
They don't score a lot of goals, but defensively, they are a lot solid. They've got a fantastic keeper like we have in Dubravka, but they've got a defensive unit that is very solid, very pacey. They're all good runners. They all can have the ball and travel with the ball, and that's what we don't have. We don't have that solidity like they do, and that might be the difference.
They do really work like sort of attract players, though, don't they? For them. I don't know if it's because of the London thing or
it's the money. It's the money. It's the same with all the London clubs. All the London clubs. None of these players even know who these clubs are. Crystal Palace, Fulham's, teams like that. None of these players know who they are. And I don't mean to sound disrespectful. Their agents tell them that they're moving to London, and they'll go, "Okay, where do I sign?" Right? They know about Newcastle. They know that it's further north. Right? They know the passion of the fans. They know how big the club is. Right? We are more of a pull. Right, if we have an owner that's ambitious, those players come and play for us. There was a good question in there. I think it was Razmataz earlier on the chat. He mentioned about would Eddie Howe come up north to play to manage Newcastle? 100%. There was no doubt about it. To manage the club, a club like Newcastle, he would snap his hand off, their hand off, to come and manage our club. And players under a new ownership will go out of their way to come and play for us, okay? Because we're a big club with a huge fan base with massive potential. But the problem is that we've got an owner that doesn't care about the club. We've got a manager that doesn't care about the club. We've got a managing director that doesn't care about the club. So everyone in leadership positions right now don't care about the club. So you're looking at players and you're thinking, do I really want to go to that? Do I really want to sacrifice 4 or 5 years of my career playing in an environment like that?
Yeah, you just think with Mike Ashley. He's not in a position to commit to a long contract or anything, do you? The arbitration and all that.
There's that as well, but he's got Mike Ashley's got bigger issues right now because he's got players on massive contracts that haven't got relegation lease clauses.
How stupid is that?
They're going to be going down into the Championship, still earning 180, 70, 60 grand a week. So there's big issues there that he's got to sort out. But hopefully he won't have to sort those issues out.
Al-Walid, what's your take? Finish off with you today, mate, just on the managerial situation. You've heard what everybody else has had to say. You're in that box seat where you can take it all in and come up with something. But what's your views?
I'm still wondering, does Mike Ashley speak personally to Steve Bruce? And we know he's busy, and a businessman and busy, but this is, he have asset to protect. And if he does, if I am Mike Ashley, I would ask him, Steve, are you gonna play the same next game? Okay. Next question. Which game you think your plan is gonna work? I wish if there is a solution like now. We know that still there is a problem in signing manager. I don't know if I think it's possible to give Grammy Jones total 100% to put him in charge against Tottenham, and let's see what he can do. Steve Bruce free, he will not do anything. I don't know if this is possible or not, just to see, and we will know that players, we know all the players are devastated and frustrated with the Steve Bruce. Let's see them what they're gonna do with Grammy Jones. This is just maybe a solution. For the managers who will came, this is of course it will depend on the takeover and stuff. But for now, usually the young names like Solskjaer, Lampard, they will be good with their own teams because they know the teams better, or at least strong teams like what Gerrard do in Scotland. That's because he's have a fresh mind. He just retired. He know the recent formation and stuff, and he have good valuable players. But if this coaches, like when Solskjaer coach Cardiff, he get relegated with Cardiff because the players or the material, the value of the players it's less comparing, of course, to Manchester United or the big teams. So the point is, let's go to the most experienced coach, let's say, and unfortunately, Steve Bruce should be one of them. Sam Allardyce or Chris Wilder. They are old school, generally old school. They just came. It's like old professor in the college when he teaches you. He just do the plan and do what I say. He still believe in his plans, very old plans. And this is, we didn't actually win that, and we didn't see now someone. We didn't see Allardyce work with Bromwich Albion. Same as well with Chris Wilder. So let's say we need someone in the middle, in the mid side. Let's say, for example, Zidane. He's in the middle. Eddie Howe as well. Scott Barker. They all in the middle. They still have the fresh mind, and they are learning. They did learning from their previous mistake in coaching in earlier career. Eddie Howe, I'm not happy, as I said before on Twitter, because he has already got Bournemouth relegated. But let's say he will have Wilson, he will have Fraser, he will have better backside and midfielder than when Bournemouth Hampton. But now, it's like we didn't want to risk. It's very risky situation. So we need temporarily, at the conclusion of that, we need temporarily solution. And for me, I think it's just give Graham Jones a chance, and let's see in the next game.
Great stuff as always, and the panel have been absolutely fantastic. Everybody in the chat's thoroughly enjoyed it, so glad we did it. It's always good because we tend to obviously do the match day live, so we never get a chance to do this, but it's a good therapy session. If you want to get yourself on screen and vent your spleen, you can join me, Pete and Chris Hall tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, for the 5-minute rant. Always a good show, always some good contributors, and well worth spending an hour with us tomorrow night, 6 till 7, if that's all right with you, Pete. Good stuff. All right. Great stuff. Enjoy your weekend. It's the last night of Ant and Dex, and make sure you tune into ITV. And we haven't had the football to spoil it, so go and enjoy your night. Take care. Thanks, panel. Good night.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna